Yo, what is up, YouTube boxing family? It's K right here. I wanted to make this response video to Andrew Garcia, aka Boxing Genius, on YouTube. Pretty good channel. Please go check him out. Link will be down below, under the Instagram video or wherever I post it. Here's the thing about Andrew. Very, very intelligent person whenever he talks boxing, and I would definitely give him a follow. He definitely has some good content, and I believe he has his podcast called And Still Podcasts. Yeah, this is his channel right here, and I know, for And Still, hold on, just go check him out right here. Yep, that's his page. And yeah, he has some really good content. He has his co-host Nelson. They're pretty good people, so I definitely give them a follow. All right, so let's talk about what he was saying about who is the greatest boxer of all time and how many of them are the greatest. Andrew was mostly stating that the greatest boxer of all time doesn't really exist in boxing, and that I can definitely agree. In terms of what the greatest boxer of all time resembles for, it's a pretty hard concept to get behind, because the issue is, however, is that boxing back then was way different in the past compared to now. Fighters fight more technical in the modern new era, and everything style-wise has a different setup based on how the fighters fight. Boxing's been around for thousands of years. The sport has never been a young sport, as some weird, idiotic casuals like to say. You can look back at its original origins, going all the way back to ancient Sumer, and most likely ancient Africa over in Egypt, and that pretty much explains everything in a nutshell. But yeah, leading into today's time frame, if we want to go back at least 200 years, back in the 1800s to 1900s, that's when boxing started to take off, and the level of skill set got really, really good, where fighters were actually doing very well for themselves to be successful. The issue, however, is that when you are reviewing styles in boxing, it's very hard to determine what style would do best against all the other styles. And I think that's why when pound for pound philosophy came into existence, predating to Sugar Ray Robinson, that's why pound for pound had to matter, because Sugar Ray Robinson, based on skill, had all the tools in the toolbox to be, the almost near perfect boxer, boxer puncher, if you will. The thing is that with pound for pound lists today, people use too much emotionalism, and they lie a lot, and they're using popularity contests to justify pound for pound lists. Pound for pound lists should be based on skill, and objectively speaking, it should all be reviewed on a reputational analysis base of the fighter's skill set, not just saying that fighter should be on the pound for pound list based on political popularity, style preference. Andrew did make great points in this video, saying that back then boxing used to be a lot more dangerous for fighters in the old past, and yeah, that is very true. When boxing started to innovate a lot more, predating from the British, that came up with the innovation of the boxing glove, which then later became popularized by the United States, where boxing actually permanently took over the sport for marketability in America. That's where all your greatest fights were being held there. All the other parts of the world cannot really compete with America in terms of marketability and selling big fights, because no big name will ever think about going over there to fight. And even if they did, it doesn't make sense to all the other fans on a global level to invest their time and effort for money to actually, see those fighters. That's why the U.S. outperforms every country worldwide when when it comes to marketability for sports, just in general. But for boxing, yeah, America is number one in that. category to have, all the best fights made and all the fans show up. Um, in regards to Andrew's video, uh, when you do look at the fighters of the past, a lot of fighters back then were not really fighting very clean. And the thing was is that a lot of fighters were actually fighting a lot more rounds back then. When you looked at the 1800s in America, if not probably 1900s, there were boxing fights that lasted like 47 rounds, if I'm not mistaken, predating to the 1940s, and I think it ended maybe by the 60s or maybe mid 50s. But boxing was definitely a whole different world where fighters were, not really being fair. The referees were definitely being racist to definitely black fighters or just any fighter that they wanted to make sure that the favorited fighter can win. And they all play a political corruption, as far as the political cabals that have been created within the boxing world back then compared to now, which nothing hasn't changed. It's just that there's just different bad actors that have hidden themselves in the sport, therefore making the sport a lot more harder to determine who's a good person and who's a bad person. Boxing today is more modernized with more technical skill set. Not every fighter is like that because some fighters are just not that good defensively, and most fighters cannot keep that defensive IQ level, discipline at the world title level. So that's where you see fighters getting clipped out pretty early at the world title level. And not every fighter is going to be like that because you have to be very smart with your shots. And, fighters that are good at punching hard, they will definitely take you down and it won't benefit you short term or long term. Andrew definitely made some good points where he was trying to say how many fighters of the past can be translated to a better adaptation with fighters of today. And style wise, styles do make fights, but there's the old saying in boxing that there's always going to be somebody better than you that's going to take you out. And yeah, that's very true. It's just like, the thing is like when we do review fighters that we do like from the past, like for example, Mike Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard, Sugar Ray Robinson, Tommy Hearns, Ernie Shavers, who else? Corey Sanders, if I'm not mistaken. He's that white guy that knocked out Klitschko, or one of the Klitschko brothers. You had Ronnie Shields. You had so much competition, and the issue is that everybody has a hard time determining who is the greatest fighter of all time. Most people would say it's Muhammad Ali. Other people would say it could be Sugar Ray Robinson, maybe Jack Johnson, or Rocky Marciano. Who knows? I mean, that's really where the arguments are battled. In between discussions, and I think the thing is that it's okay to have a greatest fighter of all time, or it's better to list your greatest boxers of those eras and how much impact that they have done for the sport, because these are legendary figures. And even in this current generational time frame that I'm in, there will be another set of great fighters or all-time great fighters that I'll look up to after I'm young, or after I'm done being young, and then when I'm like old and gray, sitting close, to my final days of life, I'm gonna have my greatest fighters of all time back in my day. So I think the thing is like, Andrew does make a very good point. Like, how many greatest fighters are out there, and how can you determine the best fighter out of everybody? Because that's a lot of competition that you have to be putting on top of each other. And I can definitely agree. I think the issue, however, is just measuring, their styles against the fighters of today from the past. in comparison to them to say who's gonna win. Like for instance, like when I made my Instagram posts or YouTube posts about Roberto Duran versus Gervonta Tank Davis, I said that I think Gervonta Tank Davis can beat Roberto Duran. A lot of people thought I was crazy, but I thought he can. He can beat Duran if he fights smart. But the thing is that I'm just making a general statement of what I think could happen. And all the idiots that want to say, nah, man, you're not right about what you say. I'm a boxer, man. I have all this knowledge better than you. You've never, been in the boxing ring like that. Tank will get stomped by Duran. Duran's bigger and stronger than him. But it's like, you guys are just getting up in your feelings because you don't like you're not being honest about the style. You're not being honest about the matchup, and that's exactly how that can relate to measuring the talent from the past with the talent with today's modern era. It's hard to do that because how can you determine if a fighter from the past can beat fighters from today? Like for example, like I could use Muhammad Ali, being tested today at the heavyweight division with Deontay Wilder. Like I'll throw in Tyson Fury in there just to use him as a general, litmus test. Andy Ruiz, AJ, or Anthony Joshua, Alexander Usyk, Michael Hunter. I mean, how many of these guys can Muhammad Ali beat? That's that's the question that we won't know because Muhammad Ali was a different type of style back then that is not the same with those styles that we have seen from our current generational era. So the thing is that we can't know who will be better than who from the past. Being compared to talent today, and it does make sense because it's like you should just leave these people alone and just focus on today's current generational era because that's really how talent is going to be perceived differently because these eras had different ways of preparing talent or were preparing talent in a certain way where fighters had different strategies of entering into a fight, of how they were going to win the fight in a more fundamental based manner. So I think Andrew does definitely makes a good point. The greatest boxer of all time does not exist for one fighter over all eras, but I will say there is a great fighter of a era that could be one of the best fighters of a all-time skills based analysis. Like for example, for what I will say, Sugar Ray Robinson, like I think he's one of the greatest boxers within all boxing eras, but I'm not going to say he's the only greatest boxer of all time to beat everybody because I don't think he beats everybody, but I think he could beat at least 90 to 95% of competition, no matter how many fighters that we want to dig up from history that could very well lose to Sugar Ray Robinson. And Sugar Ray Robinson has done enough for the sport to prove why he is for who he is. But resume doesn't determine how good you are. It's all based off of how well and skill that you have developed. You can have a resume of 500 and 0, but how many of those guys, skills wise, have been developing you at 500 wins and no losses? So that's what makes a fighter based on how you breed your competition. So I think, for me at least, I respect all my fighters that I support that actually test themselves against tough competition. And the more that they do that, the better I actually, support their career. Because at least they're doing what, us true hardcores want and students of the game do, that study the sport and actually look at what we're seeing. And that's how boxing should be. I obviously like to see tournaments be instituted. I think that's how boxing should be. And, sanction bodies are doing a pretty crappy job not, consolidating competition properly. But overall, Andrew had a pretty good video. I think, I didn't have much to disagree. I think he had a lot of good constructive arguments. But yeah, please go check him out. He's a very, very good content creator. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoy the video, and I will see you guys later. Peace to all the family. Yep. I'll see you guys later. Bye.